Hey guys, good morning. It's not Christmas Eve and it's not Christmas Day. What is the day after Christmas? It's that day. It's December 26th, 2025. My name is Jason Flame, host of the Master Motivation Podcast. Super excited to have a guest today who agreed to come on and chat with me the day after Christmas, even though he's also on vacation in Colombia right now. But let's introduce our guest. This is Dino, Mr. Klein. He's a high-energy sales powerhouse, master distributor, and marketing strategist with decades of experience building teams, territories, and results at scale. From leading multi-state distribution operations, generating over $500,000 per month, to working with government agencies like the Army, Air Force, and Department of State, Dino knows how to win in high-stakes environments. A certified funnel expert, consultant, and chamber ambassador, he blends old-school hustle with modern digital strategy. Known for his relentless drive and larger-than-life personality, Mr. Klean brings insight, intensity, and real-world lessons you won't want to miss. So welcome to the show, Dino. Thanks for being on.
Oh, thank you for having me. And wow, thanks for that intro. That was amazing. I look forward to meeting that guy.
I know. You know, we've both been on a couple shows, right? You listen to your bio and you're like, who wrote that?
Wow,
that sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Who do I need to send a check to?
Right? So you and I had a pretty unique opportunity to be on the Boldathon with Dr. Smiley, and we kind of hit it off like right out of the gate, like just kind of chatting in between and after the show. So it was a great opportunity for me to highlight you and bring you on the show here today. Tell me a little bit about, kind of what's going on in your life, where you're at, what you're doing, and then we can dive in a little bit more.
Well, I think the important part to talk about first is my princessa. So I'm in Cartagena, Colombia, and I'm looking to be traveling back and forth with the benefit of this virtual world. And as long as I have a cell phone that can work and the internet that works, I can work anywhere. So, so we were scheduled to get married, but we have some more documents to work on. But we also are working heavily on the Dino show. As I was telling you a little while ago, I have no idea what happened to my background. I'm supposed to be this expert in funnels and everything, and I couldn't find my logo. So I don't know whose living room I'm sitting in. It's nice. I like a fireplace. But so many things. I don't even know where to start. I just spent before I went to Colombia, I spent time with my director and my producer for the Dino show. Now that was just something I fell into, and so they want me to go to South by Southwest, the Cannes, the huge film festival, and then bring the Dino show there, where I'm just kind of like you and I did. We just started talking and having fun. I've got a microphone, and later I want to do some acting. I don't know if I want to do any producing or directing. I want to be in front of the camera, not behind it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And just having fun. Matter of fact, the model, the tagline of the Dino show is, and I just start laughing. I go, "Are we having fun yet?"
Yeah.
Because anything you do in life, if you're not having fun, why do it? Why?
Agreed.
I mean, the benefit of being alive and being, even though I'm in Colombia, I'm a free American, so I can choose what I want to do, who I want to do it with. I'm honored that you invited me on your podcast. I've looked at a lot of your other guests, and I'm definitely in an elite group. Might be reaching above the bar, but we'll have to see.
Tell me a little bit more about the Dino show. You've done lots of different shows. I know you and Dr. Smiley do some shows together. Dive into the Dino show a little bit more.
Well, the Dino show, it happened by I don't want to say by accident, because one of the things that we were going to tell that we talked about before, actually we talked about on the Boldathon, the Bald leadership, and it was about how every situation I go into with a couple thoughts. One, that whoever I'm with and whatever I'm doing is better for me being there, not worse. As we know, we have people that we know in our lives that to drain the energy as opposed to enhance it. And so, and then I also just looked at, things more from a service aspect, and not trying to pat myself on my back or anything else like that. But, so the Dino show, it actually just when I was out, because I have no filter. I'm going to try to keep it clean here, but I have no filter at all, and who knows what's going to happen, but we're going to have fun. So people would just go, oh, yeah, that's the Dino show. Well, yeah, that's the Dino show. And then, let's see, a couple of years ago, there was the Chandler International Film Festival. My good friend Mitesh Patel was the director of that. And a group that I was doing some work with, we were sponsoring all the after parties. And it was just, having fun and what have you. Then that evolved to where Mitesh was going to put on the very first ever film convention. Like there's film festivals, there's tech meetings like Cinema Gear, and all the technical stuff. There's producer meetings, there's film markets. Like they had the huge one in LA again for 35 years running, the American Film Market. That's where people come to bring ideas and projects. And it's, just a big, you've heard of a meat market. Well, this is a film market. And so Mitesh's idea was to wrap it all together under one roof. And so, but, going back at the Chandler International Film Festival, even though I was just there sponsoring the after parties, I was around during the day and I saw them needing to move something. I started to move things. They go, well, wait, you're not on staff. I'm like, well, I don't know. Do you need this moved? It seems like we're needing to move things. So, yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, here, let me help you. To me, it wasn't really a big deal. And then I was running around bringing producers here and there and everything else. So back to the American Film Convention, it was Mitesh, said, I'd like to talk to you about it. I wanted, maybe get some sponsors coming in. And then later we took a trip to LA to look for a convention space, an event space. And it was kind of funny because I said to him, you should let me help you with the, the film convention. He goes, oh, no, Dino, you're a fun guy. You're great to be around. You're a super guy, but I need people that know the film world. And I'm like, I know people. And then about a week later, he called me up and said, maybe you can come in and maybe help me. So I was just cold calling producers in the film industry and all kinds of other people. And then they would send me to a meeting and I would just connect with people, leading with positive energy. And then one person I became real good friends with was Giovanna Salas. And Giovanna's is an artist, a producer, a director, a model, everything, Heart of Hollywood magazine. And we became good friends. So we went down to a salsa bachata and vino special festival way into Mexico, about 2 hours past Tijuana. All right. And then when she was going to have her annual red carpet event and all the Hollywood elites and whatever. Right. And then I said, yeah, I'll come out there and help you out. Again, just here, let me help you out. Then she said, Dino, I want you to do red carpet interviews. And I was like, what? But I said, okay. What's the rule of thumb if you're a speaker, right? If somebody offers you a mic, take it and then run with it, right? Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden, and then she had her cover model had this hat, which y'all can't see my logo because I don't have it, but and I was giving the guy crap because I wore his sunglasses. It was a brother, and then this cute bolo hat, right? And just to mess with him in the parking lot. And then when it came time to film, he's like, "Oh, you got to do this." And then we also were connected with NYC Agnew, who's been everything in the industry. And he was my first interview. And he's like, oh, my God, I wanted you in sales, but we have something special here. And I later said to my good friend, David Mayorga, who's also the director, I said, is he serious? Because I know a lot of people in Hollywood are not genuine. But he was very genuine. And so one thing led to another. And besides having having a rotator cuff surgery, we're now good to go. And, producers are talking about putting me in movies.
It's just crazy how one thing leads to another, one connection, one relationship away from that next big thing. I'm really curious and interested to see how the Dino show fleshes out, and I'm looking forward to checking it out and sharing it with the audience. Let's talk a little bit more about your background too, and that you've built and led successful teams across multiple industries. What mindset shift was the most critical to your long-term success?
Well, I think well, if we start in my initial sales career, which I didn't ever want to be in sales, my father told me I should be in sales. And actually, like, make a long story short, car broke down on the turnpike right before my senior year of college. I was going to be an accountant and an attorney. I had a political career, which won't mention which party. And so I was being groomed. And so I reluctantly took a job selling rainbow vacuum cleaners door to door in home. And the only reason I did it is because they gave me a guarantee if I did 50 presentations with 0 sales, I'd make $1,050. This is in the summer of 1991. So my whole goal, I put the bar really high. I said, I'm going to work my tail off for a month and then quit. But the more I applied myself, the more opportunities came out. I didn't go back to school. I just didn't need to. Later, I moved up with the company, become the director of marketing. Like 3-4 months later, we set records, and then we moved from in Toledo, Ohio, not even a nice place to visit, to Indianapolis, Indiana. And then we started just with a management team. That's where we built from. I think one of the key things for those that are listening here is don't try to be too smart. In other words, we would have 2 types of meetings. We would have a sales meeting where the owner, the distributor, is teaching us. Mm-hmm. And then we would have the parking lot meeting where everybody's out there, they're smoking. And I know he says to do this, but this is what I do. Check this out. If you understand this and nothing else, for those that are looking at a sales career, your boss only has his success or her success if you're successful. Why would they give you bad information? So I didn't blindly follow, but I really followed what the owner was teaching me. And if I didn't have it down, I would stay extra. I said, look, can we work on this some more? Can we work on this some more? I never had a better way. Now, sometimes if I come up with an idea, I'd run it by them and see what they thought. I wouldn't just go rogue. So that was one of the keys to the success. I think also when you're looking at, as far as, motivation, one thing that everybody should do is they need to feed themselves with positivity. And there's so much stuff out there. You can watch the Jason Flame podcast. You can get some good information. There's so much good information. Start your day with something positive. If you start your day with something positive, you have a much better chance of having a wonderful day. If you start it with negative or turning on the news,
nope. Well, I got to jump in real quick because, quite honestly, you and I had never met prior to being on the Bald Boldathon. And that is exactly what drew me to you, was that positive energy. And just, you talk about the knowing people and having the parking lot meetings, like how important those are, because when you get to know the people in the company outside of the sales meeting itself, there's a different dynamic about it. But, you have this very positive dynamic that I think is very infectious around probably everybody that you're ever around, and helps lead to those opportunities. Because like you said, nobody wants to spend time with someone that's a drag. Nobody wants to spend time with someone that's bringing you down. So continue with your story, but I just want to put that in there, that's exactly how we connected, was because of your positive energy.
Yeah. So you just made me think of something else too. So one of the things that I used to do is I would just constantly bother my distributor, the owner of the company. I later out excelled him, by the way, which was a fun story. But I think I think there's a lot of different things that I'm thinking of. Number one, we would have a weekly distributor meeting as we were building the company, and I tell you what, a guy did 40 sales that month, and he's strutting around like a peacock and everything else. And then all of a sudden, he's got him in a low time. He's like this. It was about staying even keel and knowing that the numbers are always going to work out. I think that's an important thing, is knowing what your numbers are. And then also, it's like, the common fact that probably a lot of your audience knows is the subconscious cannot tell the difference between something that actually happened or something that we thought happened. Like I remember there was a study one time where they took college basketball players, and they took 2 groups of them. One group just visualized that perfect foul shot over and over and over again and shot for like 5 minutes, and then the other group just shot foul shots for like an hour. Right? The group that only shot for 5 minutes but visualized that perfect shot, they out excelled when they did the test again. So one thing that I learned to do is when we go on a sales call, we go on a sales presentation, right? Number one, that's how I got my name, because actually my legal name's Dean. Dean, no. Dean, no. Dean, no. So it's Dino. But I would never hear no. I would never hear no from a client or a customer because they didn't say no to me. So I definitely didn't personalize it. They said no to a clean home. They said no to, a healthier environment. They said no to, whatever it is that we were providing, that you're potentially providing for them. And I think one of the tricks that I learned early on, when I understood that your mental mindset is everything, because it's kind of like, a husband and wife, right? Something happens, right? And then they replay that negativity over and over and over again. And then the cap is off the toothpaste in the bathroom, and it's time to get a divorce lawyer because that situation didn't happen once. It happened 50 times because they kept replaying it. Same thing in sales, same things in life. So if I replay the negativity over and over and over again, I'll be nothing but negative. Right. If I trick myself into the point of being positive, if I went on a sales call, by the time I got to my car, I've already forgot what happened. And I was replaying that last perfect presentation where I walked in. We were like, you and I developed that instant rapport, right? Same type of thing. We developed great rapport. Everything was going well. They referred me to their friends. They maybe came in as a recruit or what have you. It doesn't matter what product that we're selling. If we replay that made shot, we replayed that perfect presentation. We replayed how they loved our product or service. That's the only thing that we know. I've never missed on a sale. Some people haven't bought from me, but I've never missed. I've had 100% average of all the people that put in the orders. They bought from me.
Yeah, and that's huge. Whether we're talking sales, sports. I mean, you could really just apply that anywhere. When you visualize, like you said, that perfect shot or that perfect sale or that perfect opportunity or that perfect situation, and play that over and over in your head, it's going to produce positive results versus the opposite, which is we just continue to play. They said no, so that sticks in our head. I missed this shot. I missed breaking a board. And I dwell on that. I mean, I've watched kids attempt to break a board and not break it. And all they keep telling themselves is, it didn't break. So if I hit it again, it's not going to break. If I hit it again, it's not going to break. But if you just take a second, close your eyes and watch the board break and hit it one more time, you're going to see a different result.
Yeah, it's gone. I mean, because you only know how to break a board. You don't know how to not break a board.
Right. Let's talk more about Mr. Klean. You started to touch on it a little bit, but I mean, it's just such a cool nickname, right? I mean, everybody asks me, by the way, because everybody refers to me as Master Flame, and I'm Master Flame in the karate school, as you saw in the video. I'm Master Flame in professional wrestling. It just kind of like follows me, and it's not really a nickname anymore. It's just kind of like it's me. It's you. It is me, right? And so it really stands out, though. So what does it represent, and how do you about how you do business and how you show up as a leader?
Well, I don't know if it'll be that dramatic, but I moved to Phoenix, Arizona in 2017. This is my parents wanted to relocate, and then and actually didn't know anybody or anything. And I was getting ready to launch a digital marketing company again, and a good friend of mine who owns Ultra Soap International out of Kansas City, Missouri. He's like, hey, look, I built a distributor program based on Rexair, the other company that we built, a very large organization. I built it on the same model. You'd be perfect for this. Because he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm getting ready to launch a digital marketing company. Matter of fact, on that drive with Lyft, I just picked up a black Lexus so I can make a little more, and then I can work while I'm driving. And he goes, no, you're too talented for that. He goes, I just set up a distribution thing for Ultra Soap International. And he goes, I'd love for you to meet with my distributor, but he's in Indianapolis. I said, well, I'm on my way to Indy, so it's all going to work out. And so we launched Ultra Soap Arizona. And I was showing my little business card, commercial cleaning products and all that. Oh, Dino Klein. Oh, you're Mr. Clean. And so all that, I don't get as many calls anymore, but I used to get telemarketing calls all the time. Hello, can I speak to Dean Klean, please? I would like to help you with your student loans. So So they're all so foreigners are already pronouncing it clean. So, but I was actually, so we launched that in the fall of 19. I was going out getting commercial accounts and everything else. Then we wanted to do business with the government. This was another great example of where one thing morphed into another. And so I got my cage codes. Then we got our certifications, as a service disabled veteran-owned small business with my father. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if you heard about it, but in early 2020, there was this thing called the coronavirus. And so the commercial industry.
I never want to remember it again.
Oh my God. Well, I tell you what, brother, so we had 3 EPA enlisted disinfectants. I had 2 guys on the COVID task force. I had I was just getting set up as a testing company in all the Indian reservations, and I don't know what date it was, but it was on a Friday that we got the email. Look, things are opening up. We're not gonna, but we had the first Indian res. After we did them for 2 weeks, we had 7 others ready to go. Now. I lost out on a lot of money, but I was happy that they didn't need the services. Right. That was kind of like an oxymoron because I was, COVID was great for me. They told me that you had to social distance and that you couldn't, go out, you couldn't meet people. Dude, I hadn't dated in years. But when somebody told me what I could or couldn't do, that didn't work out real well for me. So I went on Bumble and Tinder, and I had a hell of a 20. I wish I had a camera back then. And then when it opened up, I took myself off. I don't do well when somebody forces me to do something.
This is why we get along. Well, I have to go back because I often say that I don't want to talk about COVID, but I will say that our business, and we have a martial arts school. Believe it or not, we have a martial arts school, and we do everything in person, and right. But our business flourished during that time because so many people wanted to work out, so many people wanted to get to do something, and we just happened to be that something. And so we were actually able to introduce martial arts to people that probably never even really thought of martial arts, but because we were active and we were busy, people wanted to be part of it. And now, now they never look back. There's also a lot of things. This podcast started because of COVID, because I can't go out and we're not doing our daily and weekly meetings that we do. I do a lot of work in the Chamber of Commerce and in our community. And it's can't really do that in person, but we can do it on Zoom, or we can do it and use StreamYard. And so that's how the podcast was born. So I have to catch myself when I say, gosh, I don't ever want to go back to that again. There's a lot about it that I didn't love, but a lot of good. So it goes back to your positive attitude and looking for the good that came out of it rather than focusing on the negative.
Yeah, well, I tell you, some people said, oh my God, you must have just totally crushed it and what have you. Well, we morphed into government supplies and dealing with the government. And it was also going back to, you talked about the chamber. I was with the Arizona Hispanic Chamber, the Scottsdale Chamber, and then the Southwest Veterans Chamber. And I was an ambassador for all 3. As a matter of fact, I'm the solo gringo for the Arizona Hispanic Chamber. But they actually did more for my business with all the support and help. A lot of it's through grants and different things that they get for the different minorities. And one was for service disabled veteran-owned small business. So I was getting a lot of help and attention. But it was, it's the one thing that's constant in life is change. And you and I have the ability to pivot and change. Like I pivoted into government supplies. And, with a lot of different connections there. But, there's so many things where people think, hey, I've got the roll by the tail and a downhill drag and I'm going well. How did that work out for Blockbuster? Or you think of it, then the Red Box or the Netflix, or, are you able to pivot? We can't control a lot of things in life. And when something like that happens, like Corona, like COVID, like you're in California, they went really crazy there.
It's still a little crazy.
Well, that's the. And by the way, what part of Cali are you in? You told me before.
Yeah, I'm in Southern California. Easiest way, about 45 minutes from Los Angeles, 45 minutes north.
Oh, north. Okay.
Yeah, so we're in Ventura County, so we're kind of right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got some friends that are out there right now. So.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not our usual sunny 85 degrees wearing shorts. I actually have to wear pants today when I go to the gym, and that's never something that I love to do. That's why I love California so much, is I get to wear shorts and a t-shirt pretty much every day.
You got to wear your big boy clothes.
I got to wear big boy clothes today. I'm not into that. I'm just not happy about
Yeah.
it, but it's okay.
Yeah, but going back to what we were talking about, you're being able to pivot, being able to adjust,
Yeah.
being able to, so your industry might be completely changed.
Hmm.
I mean, look at what's, before, for example, without getting in politics, there was a whole bunch of Green New Deals and Green New Initiatives, whether they were good or bad. I'm not here to talk about that. And then all of a sudden, then you got a new guy, you got the orange man in office, and he says, no, we're not doing any of that crap. And so, you might have built a company to streamline towards a certain, call it the green stuff. And then all of a sudden, the government comes in and says, well, we can't do that. Well, how do you pivot? What do you adjust to? What do you go to?
Yeah.
And then if you built a team, I think one of the things that you had mentioned before we got on this call is you said, how, building teams, what I think, and I thought about that, since we talked the other day, and I said, in building teams, and I thought about a few things. And we ran commission only companies. So if you got to eat what you caught that week, if you're a fisherman, so to speak, right? And my father and I would retain our sales reps much, much, much longer than anybody else would. And hopefully I'm not coming off and bragging, but the reason we did is, if you're a leader, it's important to understand one thing. People only want to know what you know when they know how much you care.
Hmm.
Our people knew we cared. For example, 1 out of 3 people bought. If somebody went on 5 presentations without an order, I rode with them. They watched me. I watched them somehow, and I made sure that they were going to be successful. And then I kept their mindset right. The Master Motivation podcast, mindset, motivation, right? When I would hire sales reps, I would spend an hour, explaining, how you got to be careful who you talk to. Everybody's going to tell you what you can't, it won't, it doesn't, it couldn't, it shouldn't, it isn't, you can't divorce yourself from your family, but try to minimize the time that you spend, especially getting advice. So don't talk to them about what you're doing, especially if it's a new adventure. Get it going and then show them actual proof, right? I remember my boss, back in the early days, he got married, and his wife's dad had 26 years in at Ford, factory guy, and wanted him to have a real job. Go out and get a real job and all that. About 4 years later, as Ozzy's in the country club doing IPO deals and everything else, her father's laid off. So control your own destiny. But going back to our people, they knew how much we cared. I mean, I spent time with them. I talked to them about their bills. I talked to them about their relationships. I had a no negativity rules. If I saw somebody come in the office and they didn't look bright and cheerful, I brought them into mine. I said, what's going on? Before they infected anybody else with negativity.
Right. Yeah.
I got to fix this, or I might let them have the day off if I can't fix it.
Oh,
fix
100%.
your attitude or fix your zip code. One of the two.
Yeah. It's so funny, you were talking about the real job situation, and who you surround yourself with, and what you listen to. I started my business at 19 years old, and wanted to own a martial arts school, like all the people that I learned from, and it was just something I was so passionate, so excited about. And there were definitely the crowd of people around me, in my family, not in my family, that were super supportive, super like, if this is your dream, if this is your passion, go for it. But then there were some also in my family and not in my family that would say, well, how are you going to make a living doing that? Is that what are you going to do for a real job? It just strikes a chord every time someone talks about that, because I definitely faced that. And I could have listened to all the doubters and all the haters, and well, maybe I'll, because in the beginning I actually, I wanted to do that, but I thought, well, okay, because people are telling me that it's not a real job and it may not provide for my family the way that I'll need it to, maybe I'll have a second job. And so I wanted to become a PE teacher, so I could be a PE teacher during the day, martial arts instructor at night, and those would be the perfect blend. Well, I opened my school, things started to do really well, and I actually had to make a decision. Do I continue going to school to be the PE teacher to provide and support my passion, or do I just go full in? And at that time, I had the support of now my wife and my family and friends that knew I could do it, and that was the difference maker. But if I had listened to the people that doubted, I would have continued going to school, which is not a bad thing at all, but my life would have been very different had I gone down that path.
Totally different. Totally
way
different.
way different, way different.
I mean, it's like, and I stole this one from Mark Cuban, but I pride myself in being unemployable.
I like it.
And when you talked about that reminded me that my dear friend and my very first coach consultant, a guy named Scott Manning. He met a guy named Bill Glazer, Dan Kennedy, the GKIC. Matter of fact, he built up their chapter system. But Bill met him when he just got his master's degree, and he was taking martial arts, but he decided that he was going to out excel his sensei. And so he opened a martial arts studio, but took his marketing brain with it and just crushed it. And now, he's done consulting for about every industry. Now he just specializes in just high-end dentistry. I was sitting at the table with Dan Kennedy. Because of Scott and all that he's done, I can't tell you how many times, the doors that he opened for me, because I was able to connect with people. That's actually a whole part of, my success as well. And then I want to, he saw how I could connect with people. So he would take me to GKIC events. I'm in the back with the owners and talking, by the way, did you know I'm not even a member? They Dino. But he would see, I remember he would see an event. That's actually where I met Dr. Smiley. This probably 15 years ago. I thought it was, a late night drunk text or something else. Although he doesn't really drink that much. It was like 1:30. What are you doing this weekend? And, are you, and long story short, it was called the JV Summit in Atlanta. And actually there were certain, events. Sometimes there's things can happen. Well, the event space, the convention, everything, it just blew up at the last minute. So they just had it at the hotel, but they had all of the top players, Onyx Signal, Brendan Burchard, Ryan Dice. They had, just everybody. Right. And we were basically, there was about 15 people in the room that these 25 or 35 lead players were pitching to, but we all became friends. That's where I really met Ken. And then when I was looking at the things he was doing, more philanthropy, for his heart. But so Scott would send me to all different kinds of events because I would line up coaching consultants, but then it would also develop so many connections for me. And one connection leads to another, Ken Roshan, now it's Jason Flame and Dino.
That's right. And who knows where we go from there. It's my father told me this very early on, and it goes right with this, that it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that has changed my life. And I tell my kids this all the time, it's not what you know. And I'm not discounting education or experience or anything like that, but sometimes you meet the right person at the right time and the right opportunity opens up. Talking about teams before, we started diving into that a little bit, so when building a team, what qualities matter more to you than talent or experience?
Attitude.
Always.
That's it. It's a short list. When I look at the resume, the only thing I would look at is, okay, has he had 20 jobs in the last 6 months? Or has he had a little bit more tenure? It is because if not, he's going to be in and out of my doors.
Right.
But more importantly, it was just he or she's attitude during an interview process. And then, the other thing, we're talking about building teams. I was the youngest distributor, not in age, but in, tenure wise. And then at the end of the day, everybody was working for me. And here was the one other reason besides caring for my people, opportunity. When I was hiring people, there was basically hit it and get it promotion levels. Also, you had to have added, integrity and honesty and those kinds of things for the major corporation to approve anything. But I offered opportunity. I wanted somebody else to have my job. And so, I opened up another outlet, opened up another outlet, opened another outlet. I remember the top dog back in Indiana, he was somebody that we later acquired. I'm not going to get into all this the side conversation there, but I mean, this guy was crushing it like the clock ticked, but he never offered opportunities to people. So one thing that I know from my experience, now different industries might be different, but you're going to lose everyone that's on your team. They're either going to move up or they're going to move out because they want an opportunity. So there's a way that they can move up and they can still be part of you. But I'd rather make, what happens then is I make a little off of a lot than a lot off of a little. If that makes sense.
It makes sense a lot. Yeah, it's something that this was hard for me to learn as a young entrepreneur, especially because when I started, it was just me, and then my brothers helped teach the classes a little bit, right? But it was mostly just me. It was my business. I didn't really truly understand how a team would make it so better because I had never really seen that before, right? I never really saw a martial arts school create a team culture and a team atmosphere where I saw instructors that would be really, really good, but they would come and they would go. And like you said, they either move up or move out. And so, I didn't have an opportunity to move up. So I moved out to open my own martial arts school, but I didn't understand it yet. And then 10 years in, it's like, I'm still teaching all my classes, and where I've had good instructors over the years, but where are they going? They're going for other opportunities, whether it was in martial arts or otherwise. But now I see so much. I see how important it is to continue to provide. I've started instructors at 14 years old. It's their first job. They move from assistant instructor to a lead instructor to a head instructor to a manager to a program, and it's like, wow. And they're staying 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. That's pretty amazing because, like you said, that opportunity, they're either going to move up or they're going to move out. And so, but again, that took me a long time to understand. So I'm glad that you touched on that and explained a little bit more. Talk a little bit more about how that the attitude and opportunity. Talk about culture within your team. Talk about how you build camaraderie within the team.
Well, but one other thing I want to touch on too, and then I'll dive into that, is, most people think when they're hiring people that there's a few things. One, it's all about the money. Well, the three primary things, and most people, if I ask the question, they get it in the wrong order. The number one thing that you can offer somebody is recognition. The second one is opportunity, and then the third is money. And so so many times people focus on just the money, but they don't focus on recognizing people. What we talk about in the Baldathon, simple things that are free in life: graciousness, thank you, a compliment, a kind word, and then creating that. Again, that's how you create that environment. I also think that hire people, if you can, hire people smarter than you. And, whenever I'm building a team or I'm doing anything, like when I was building the government contracting, I said, listen, here are going to be my different ideas. I said, now, we have a couple rules here. We praise in public and we reprimand in private, and that includes me. So if there's something I'm not doing you don't like or you want me to adjust, that's great. But talk to me about it behind closed doors. Don't talk to anybody else about it because they can't change me. I can only change me if I decide to. So, it's not going to be my way or the highway. So, people want to be heard. If you have a relationship with a woman, I remember a piece of advice that happened. This guy was, uber successful, 50 million a year, but his husband, but he was having trouble in his relationship. So what was recommended to him to buy a watch. And he bought this watch, and he looked at the watch when he walked in the door. And until he saw 20 minutes go by, could he then talk? So you got to be able to listen. I always tell people, give me input. How can we do things better? If I'm left to my own devices, that's it. Now, maybe I can come up with some new ideas, some creative ideas like you can in your business. But that brand new person might have, an awesome idea. Some of them you'd be like, okay, that's a great idea. We already tried that though, and this is what happened. But keep coming up with more. Sometimes you try that idea, and then you give them all the recognition in the world. You see how this thing worked out? We did this. We did martial arts in the parking lot, and because of Jimmy's idea to do that, because of X, Y, and Z, our business has flourished. Jimmy, you keep coming up with it, man. We love you, brother. Keep coming back. People want to be heard, and so that culture, and then also, like we would have company trips that we would go on. Like we would have your weekly sales meeting and weekly recognition and all that, and then monthly events, and then quarterly events as well. So when I took my distributors on a quarterly event, I would do something for the husbands and the wives. Like besides having like little gifts in the room, right? Never cash. Cash is a horrible thing. Gifts in the room, something they're going to wear in the future, saying, San Andreas Island or whatever. But for example, I would take all the wives and I would say, listen, I want your help. You guys know your husband better than I do. I want to be able to pick out a really nice gift for them. Will you meet me in the lobby? And then they met me in the lobby, and then I walked over to the spa and I said, okay, this is Gina, this is Betty, this is this. All right, y'all enjoy. What about our husbands? Oh, they'll be all right. We're going to go have a drink. They would have a spa day, or I would do something, special where I would say, "Hey guys, I need for you to meet me with me here. I want to plan something a little bit later, but I just want the guys talking about it." And then I would do something great for them. But those family trips, or the summer trip was always a family trip. The other trip was for husband and their partner, or spouse. I said you can always bring your wife, you can bring your girlfriend, but you can't bring both. But you can take one. But it's just I think it goes back to what we're talking about, just attitude. Yeah. Are they having fun? Do they enjoy what they're doing? And other little things too, where we can trick ourselves. Like if you want a certain result, like we wanted to get 10 cards, you want them to get 10 results, 10 cards. So I would say, go get me 50 results. Yes, no, and not home or whatever. Give me 50 results. If you promote yourself, like I think one of the things you asked me the other day is, how did you, keep yourself constantly motivated? I tricked myself with, and I think the most important thing is understand your numbers. Always understanding your numbers. I just took a position where I was going out and working with the company. And I'm like, what are the numbers? What are the holdup? What can I expect? What are the holdup? Okay, what's the closing average? What's the national average? What's the net ratio? In other words, if I sell X amount of deals, how many am I going to be able to put in my bank account? I want to know what all those numbers are, and then I constantly focus on myself. Like I have a really long tattoo in kanji on my back, which nobody can understand what it reads, unless you're Japanese. And it says, "True victory is winning over oneself." So just like in martial arts, how can you push yourself harder? How can you push yourself to achieve more when nobody's watching? I wasn't necessarily a fan of Kobe Bryant, but man, that dude's work attitude, he did more before noon, before 11 o'clock than most people do all damn day. Right. And he did it he didn't just, it's kind of like, people that work in a company and the doors open at 9 o'clock, right? So they're there at 5 till 9. You're late. Get in there early, have your cup of coffee, plan your day, prepare your attitude, read something positive, whether it's inspirational, whether it's, with your spirituality. If you don't have a strong spiritual base, then I don't know how you can get anything done. I don't want it left up to me.
Right. Listen, I'm a numbers guy. So going back to what you were saying about, knowing your numbers, how do you reach the next level if you don't know your numbers? And, I gotta be honest, in the early years of my business, this was also an area that suffered. I just figured if there were students on the floor and they kept coming back, we're doing okay. If there's enough money in the account to pay the bills and do what we want, then it's okay. But that didn't help me get to the next level. That only helped me kind of stay where I was at. And so it was when I found my first mentor in martial arts and in business, teaching me how, the numbers don't lie. Track your numbers, track your stats. And this is true for if you're serious about weight loss, I just got this Aura ring because a friend of mine suggested it and talking about your sleep numbers and looking at now I'm going to be all obsessed about looking at my sleep. But when it comes to stats, like I look at them very carefully because I'm able to predict the future. I can see a trend. I can see where we're headed. I can very easily take where we're at and where we want to be and just say, hey, we got to adjust the numbers just this much to get to there. And any sports team does this. Any business does this. Anybody that's serious about their health is doing this. So, tracking the stats and knowing the numbers, I think that was really key. And again, you went back to the attitude and fun. Whenever my instructors, I say my kids because now my kids are instructors at our schools or school. I always tell them before they leave or before I leave, the last thing I say is have fun. With teaching class, have fun. I know we got to sell stuff today. I know we got to do other things, but like if you're not having fun, nobody else is having fun. Right. And everybody can feel that. And it's great because I will drop in to teach a class now and again. And the students will tell me, I can tell that you absolutely love what you're doing. You seem like you're having so much fun. And I'm like, well, number one, I am. But I also know that if I don't show that, like, how's it going to be any fun or exciting for them to come back the next time? You know what I mean? So I think that's another important point.
You said something, whether you realize it or not, but also leading by example. If the leader is not leading by example by having fun, as we're talking about, having the right attitude, by putting in the work. My father and I, we went down to Bloomington, Indiana, to an area, for example, and people that are listening aren't going to necessarily understand what the numbers really mean, but there was a distributor there that averaged 6, 8, 10, 12 sales a month would be a great month. But, you can't hire people there. The economy was different there. I mean, just pick a reasons. I mean, for 10 years. And when he left to go do something else, I said, can I open there, Ozzy? And he was like, yeah. And then about a month later, I said, hey, can you come help me pick out Ozzy? Well, what do you mean? I said, dude, you told me we could open Bloomington. And my dad had kind of a different little tweak on the idea. And we went down there and we crushed it. We set records. We went from 0 to 100 net sales in a month. Remember, the other guy was at 6 to 12. In 1 month, our 6th month in business, we were in before 8 o'clock every morning, and we were working till about 1 or 2. Some people, want success, but you have to put in the work first. Everybody a guy would open an office and be a distributor, and his feet are up on the desk. No, you just started, dog. You didn't achieve anything. And, so out working, or what you were talking about, you are having fun. You are leading by example. And then other people want to create the environment that you've created. That's one of your keys, whether you realize it or not.
Duplicating it. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Let's talk about some daily habits. What's a daily habit for you specifically, or a discipline that you credit for, keeping you sharp, keeping you focused, keeping you competitive. What are some of your daily habits that contribute to that success?
Well, one, again, I try to stay away from religion and politics, but I've been practicing, been practicing Nichiren Buddhism or SGI Buddhism, where I recite a phrase, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which literally means Nam is devotion or dedication. Myoho is mystic or wondrous law. Like there's this energy of the universe. We're all part of that. Like when you go to the ocean and then you see the ocean and then you see waves. Now, is that a wave or is that part of the ocean? Is that Jason Flame or part of the universe? One and the same. And then Renge is the law of causality, which I think also drives with most of the things I do. People believe what goes around comes around, or cause and effect, which creates your karma, right? But all of your thoughts, all of your words, and all your action are a cause. And there's no rules, what are right or wrong. They're going to judge themselves, If you're doing good, good's going to come back. If you're doing bad, bad's going to come back. So Kyo, and that's through sound. So every morning and every evening, I recite parts of the Lotus Sutra, but I chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And I'm not praying to anything outside of myself. Right? I'm not worshiping a false deity before me. the sixth commandment, right? I'm just fusing this energy with the universal energy to bring about wisdom, life force, and compassion. And, also when I chant or recite that phrase, when I make decisions, I'm right all the time. When I leave it just to my brain, I'm smarter than the average bear, but I'm no Elon Musk. so, so that's one of the habits. The other is and I fell off a little bit because I'm traveling, what have you. But walking. Walking, or in Arizona, in Phoenix area. I mean, we got so many great hiking trails and so many other things. It's because it gives you time, gets you out, gets you grounded. So the more of that you can do, the better. I think as far as other daily habits, it's just minimizing time wastes, right? Minimizing time sucks. I don't spend time scrolling through reels and all that. I might look at them for a few minutes when I'm in the bathroom. I call that my reading time. For about 3 to 5 minutes or something. But so many people get sucked into so much other stuff. And I just think the other thing is just making sure I put positivity into me, just somehow. I think a big important thing for people to understand is what to say no to. So many times we feel we're being, disingenuous or disgracious, but the most important thing you can do is say no to things. This is the trajectory. This is the avenue, or this is the direction I'm going. Is this cause and action with this person or this entity moving me towards my ultimate goal, or is it putting me on a detour? If it's putting me on a detour, say no to it, because you only have 24 hours in the day. So, you're not going to get today back. My old consultant, Scott Manning, he says, I live as a fatalist. I'm not guaranteed tomorrow. So what do I got to get done today? Mm-hmm. And then, then also, identifying, preferably the night before or in the morning, what are the 3 most important things you have to get accomplished? What are, and then itemizing and focusing on those. And then also the other thing is what's that one conversation that you don't want to have? Who's that one person or company you don't want to have because it's a negative situation? Get it over with. Yeah. Get it done right away. And then it opens up your day and you're like, no matter what the result is afterwards, you're like, okay, that's done. Now I can move on. And then help people. Like what you're doing, true. You're helping people. And if your attitude's not right, we go back to that same thing again. It's like a broken record. But if you're not on point, whether it's spiritually, physically, like you said, watching your numbers, I had a scale at my place. And because I'm communicating with my princessa, I would tell her, okay, this is how many kilograms I am today. This is how many kilograms I am. And I was watching it. And I learned how to convert it because I also had an app. When I type in my kilograms, what does it say I'm at? And I got, I went from 216 to under 200 in about 3 or 4 weeks. Just by being somewhat conscious of it. Not eating too late is another one. If you eat too late, you're not going to get a good night's rest. You're not going to get the REMs. Again, you're going to be behind. You're hungover. You're hungover. But
this thing is going to tell me all about my sleep. I was so into those numbers. It's crazy. You talked about that conversation that you don't want to have. It's such a good piece of advice too, because if you can just get that out of the way, it takes so much weight off your shoulders. And even you can relate it to that task that you've been dreading, or that goal that has just been too far out. Just stepping up and accomplishing it takes so much of the weight off your shoulders. And the other thing you said too was being able to say no to things. I think that might be my word for the year, because I have always been. I often will say, yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that, because I feel like if I say no, I'm letting someone down, or I'm not proving that I'm strong enough to take it on or to handle it. But you know what? Sometimes when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else already. But at the same time, when you say no to something, you're saying yes to something else that's more important. And I think that was also a good piece of advice.
Thank you.
Well, let's jump into this last question here. It's we're right at the 55-minute mark, so we got time for one more. This is the big one. When your career is eventually summed up and you're sitting back, what do you hope that people say you stood for?
There's the usual buzzwords of honesty, integrity, but that should just be a given. So, I don't, yeah, that's, but I think that some of the things that what people would say is, damn, we always had a great time. We always had a great time with him, whether it was in business or leisure or what have you. Um, and I do have targets in my legacy, if that's where we're going as well. I have some very, very large goals financially, but it's not so that we can have the planes and the boats and everything else, but it's how I can affect society. Like the Mr. Klean Foundation there's a few different legs. One of the legs is our Heroes First, which is working with our vets and our first responders and Border Patrol, et cetera, with PTSD and with addiction. The other is a whole prison reformation system to where we can, a lot of the people that are there for alcohol, drugs, and other things. Like I used to do a lot of outreaches to prisons. We had incredibly low recidivism rates. And you put them in a selective community to where they're not working on their next bid, because you're doing one or two things. You're either not trying to come back or you're planning your next caper, right? And then, putting them in a community where they work on their behavior. Then you have another opportunity where you teach them all the different skill sets so they can be active, productive members of society. Another leg is, and I'm passionate about this before it became the big buzzwords, it's human trafficking, especially children trafficking, women trafficking, and then just a whole alcohol and addiction program as well. A preventive program, and then also a reactive program. Because the idea of just saying, no, that doesn't work. No, they said you just had to social distance, and that didn't work out for me. Right. And so, what I want to be known for is that, and I stole this from Brendan Burchard, do you give in to the situation or do you give into the situation? That I was always, that, whatever situation I was in, it was better because I was there. I brought positivity. I brought something. I made people feel better about themselves. I was able to take somebody that didn't have hopes and dreams and desires and then help them understand that you can accomplish anything you want to. People say, I don't know who said it. I know who said it. It was Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yep.
You're right. So tell them that they can do something and always have them push. Like, one of the other things that we talked about is how do you stay motivated when you start hitting certain plateaus? Well, that number was hit so I could know, okay, now that's the new benchmark. How can I get higher? How can I do that? Like people use the example of Roger Bannister, the 4-minute mile. They thought your heart would blow up. You would die. The amount of people that did 4-minute mile the following year was like 17 or 27. Before it was impossible.
Right.
So whatever the number is or whatever somebody says is the ceiling, that glass ceiling, bust through it. So if I can empower people, if I can, anybody that I'm involved with, if I can empower them and have them open their eyes, open their mind to more possibilities, if I'm known for that, besides, like I said, the honesty, integrity stuff, that should just be a given. I tell people I don't lie. It's not a big moral thing. It's just I'm not that smart. I'd have to remember them all.
Well, hey, man, thank you for sharing all that today. Thanks for coming on. Again, day after Christmas, being on here. You're on vacation. You took the time to be here, sharing your experiences. Truly appreciate it. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, anybody wants to connect with you or contact you, what's the best way to do it?
So I don't spend a lot of time on my Facebook page, and I do have a team that's going to be building my whole social media. So look in the future, kind of be peeping out for the Dino show. And then, but if somebody wanted to get in touch with me, they could probably instant message me on Facebook. Hopefully I'll see it, or, you can reach out to Jason, if you know him well. And then Jason can just do a mutual introduction. Cause if you're not somebody of quality, you're probably not going to know Jason to begin with. And I'm not being disingenuous, but it's kind of like Dr. Smiley when he introduces a couple people, you already got them vetted.
Right. No, 100%.
But be looking out for the Dino show. That'll be coming out this first quarter of next year, and a whole sets of different social media. Whether it's the podcasts like we're doing, or whether I'm at film festivals or other crazy events, and there's nobody that I won't approach.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to see how that fleshes out and how the Dino show expands. Thanks for being on the show. Again, anybody that would like to get in touch with Dino, I'll be happy to connect you with him. If you've got a podcast out there and you want to bring him on the show, let me know. We'll make that happen. Wishing you all the best in 2026 and always looking forward to further connections down the line and how we can work together and help each other out. But for now, guys, that is the Master Motivation podcast for today. I'm going to give a quick shout out. If you're still watching, you've been watching for a while, tonight, 7:30, Millennium Pro Wrestling in Chatsworth, California. I will be facing my old student, Chuck Mercer, and it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting. Yes, sir. It's going to be great.
Hey, this goes way back, but do you remember Hillbilly Jim?
Oh, yeah.
So I actually was a long distance runner and ran for Western Kentucky University, and we would stretch out in the wrestling room, and that's where Hillbilly Jim, they called him Old Allen County. That's where he would be practicing and working on moves and all the things. Yeah, he was a good old boy, big old boy.
He was a big boy. Those were my years. My years of watching wrestling was back in those early 80s. The Rock and Wrestling Connection. Good times, good memories. I still love it, obviously, to this day. So still watching. But Dino, thank you so much, man. Thanks for being on the show. We'll connect. Stick around a minute if you have the time. But guys, thank you all for watching. If you are watching this live or on a replay, like, share, and comment. Go to Master Motivation Podcast on YouTube and subscribe. Trying to continue to share all of this motivation, education, and inspiration with you all. So let's keep sharing and make it a great day, guys. All the best in 2026. We'll see you soon.